Starting to crack under the pressure. You got it, Stacy.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm going to call the meeting to order if you want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike, can you read the Elkhart, please?
The Elkhart Promise. Every student is known by name, challenged, and supported by a highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community will graduate career, college ready, and life ready.
Thank you. Everybody will have opportunity to speak. Just fill out the form in the back from the paper doors holding up. You have 3 minutes at the end of the meeting. After every agenda item, you'll have an opportunity for questions and comments. First up on the agenda are the consent items. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion?
I don't have any gifts that we received. However, I do want to say thank you to Michelle Draper, who was the technical assistant at Mary Beth for over 21 years, and Deborah Croman, who was the Elkhart Area Career Center technical assistant with over 31 years as they retire. Thank you for your service to Elkhart Community Schools, and welcome to all of our new staff that was hired, and also conference leaves. So I have kind of, was looking back at, and Doug has brought it up in the past, but where we have more information on the conferences prior to the arrival of them in the packet. And the reason for that is looking at authentically what we're gaining from that and what we're bringing back to the school and what the results are, because we have repetitive conferences and repetitive people going to the conferences. And as we look at needs for our school in general, I look at, perhaps we focus on what we've learned so far before we go to another conference and put that into the best practice. And looking at the amount of money that's about to be spent on a couple of these conferences, there are things that we can do. For example, the trauma-informed care, even though we're presenting, we have the ability to take that layer, and we talk about like the Hispanic community not having a developed understanding of what the needs are inside of the school system. Maybe, my thought running through that was, instead of taking a trip that takes that much money, do we put it in the practice of bringing, people to the table that might not understand what those practices are in our school and what they happen to do for the children, and have interpreters that, have the opportunity to explain, and not just singling out the Hispanic culture as needing that. But I just hope that we can have better conversations about the conferences and the amount of money that we're spending prior to going to those, that we're getting the most value for inside of our buildings right now before we continue repetitive practices and conferences. So these will get approved, but in the future, there needs to be a little bit more pushback or a little bit more conversation prior to it arriving to us, so that we know that we're doing the best practice with our funds so that it benefits inside of our building better. So it's just my thought for the future.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, for old business, our favorite Delta.
In the area of old business, we have three compensation plans, which we're bringing to you for final consideration this evening. The first one is Board Policy 3410.04 CS. This is a substitute compensation policy, and we are bringing this forward for final consideration this evening, a proposed change to the compensation plan. Over the past year, there has been some confusion related to the rate paid to retired teachers. The enhanced rates are only applicable to teachers who retired from Elkhart Community Schools or another Indiana school district. The rates do not presently apply to teachers who retired from other states. And so we thought it would be helpful to actually identify that specifically in the policy. So really that is the primary change, is to make that very clear that when we're talking about retired teachers from outside of Elkhart, it is retirees from other Indiana school corporations. Seeking your approval of that policy change this evening.
Doug, will you say that again? It's
Yes.
the teachers who retired from Indiana.
Yeah, Elkhart Community Schools retirees have one rate, and Indiana retirees have another rate. A teacher who might retired from Arizona, who decided, you know what, retirement to Elkhart, Indiana is really my dream come true. Rather than the heat of Arizona, they're going to just get the regular rate for substitute.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Is there somewhere else that you have the rate that the parents get when they, I mean, it's not in this, but is that somewhere else?
It is in the, it's actually in the paraprofessional policy.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
No, and I think we've had conversation on and off as to whether or not we need to also include something in the technical assistant policy. Presently, it's just covered in the paraprofessional policy.
Okay, just to make sure that they're clear and understanding what the
Yes.
rate is, if they do half day, or if they're pulled out of their position and moved into that, so it's very clear, because I think there's some that.
Yeah, it's pretty clear in that policy now. It's a fixed rate for half day and a fixed rate for full day.
And in the event that any of our retired teachers are watching, please come back and fill out.
Absolutely. You're well compensated.
Yes, very well compensated.
Is there?
We do have a daily rate for substitutes that hold a teacher's license that are not retired.
Yes.
There is no, it can be any teacher's license. It doesn't, there's no specificity on states.
No, if you look at the asterisk, I'm sorry. It still requires an Indiana license. If you look at the language below the asterisk section there. For other substitutes who hold an Indiana professional provision or emergency license issued by Department of Public Instruction, who serves in that long-term position, talks about that there, and it goes on with further detail related to that.
It's page 84 of 124.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Next is Board Policy 3422.06S. This is the Secretarial Business Compensation Plan. As I think I mentioned during the last board meeting, we have a committee that's comprised of administrators and employees from this group that have been reviewing the compensation paid to our secretarial and business employees. That committee will continue to do some work here, but there were 3 specific positions that we really felt needed to have immediate adjustments in terms of their level of compensation. I anticipate that we're going to have other proposed adjustments. In fact, probably a restructuring of how this schedule looks come December for implementation January of 2024. But this evening we are seeking those 3 changes in terms of compensation for those specified clerical positions, and those will all take effect on August the 7th of this school year, which will be a new payroll period for them. Seeking your approval of those position changes this evening.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I had this question the last time and I didn't ask it, and I still have it. Under secretarial, treasurer, high school and freshman academy principal, the double asterisks in red, I couldn't find what that pertained to. On page 86.
I honestly, Mr. Scott, I don't know the answer to that question right off the top of my head.
Okay.
But we will figure that out.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Everybody looks so serious today. Geez, smile. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Finally, in terms of policy changes, we have a proposed revision to Board Policy 3422.12S. This is the compensation plan for employees in miscellaneous positions throughout the school corporation. It's a broad span of employees, everybody from assistant direct supervisors of transportation to radio station employees. This evening, we are seeking board approval to make a change to the compensation plan for one employee in this particular position. As you might recall, Assistant Superintendent Lindsay Brander sent you a memo setting forth the rationale for that change. This individual has taken on significant additional responsibilities for that position, and we're seeking an increase to the wage range to recognize those additional responsibilities this employee would be taking on. And requesting your approval of this change this evening.
There a motion to approve? Is there any discussion? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Can you come up to the microphone, please?
I didn't hear anything about how much the compensation be raised, from what level to what level.
It shows right here for
Go ahead.
22.25, 31.65 to $35.45.
So this is a per hour.
Yeah.
Hourly wage range.
Okay.
Is there any other questions or comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Mark, no.
The administration recommends that the board approve a new course offering, state title Advanced Barbering, course number 7333. And this will be in conjunction with the Eden Barber Academy, the Elkhart Area Career Center Memorandum of Understanding, and this is a topic that you enjoyed discussing at the last meeting. We recommend your approval.
Motion.
Second. We had to use.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a reading.
Oh, just to read.
Just for review.
Is there any discussion? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, Kevin?
Okay, good evening. Good evening. In terms of financials, Business Department, I'd like to report that the cash balance at the end of June 2023 was $45,931,935.96. That only shrank from last June, same time, $228,000. So considering some of the pressure on the education fund, some funds are up, some are down, but overall pretty good. The one thing of note, interestingly enough, is we actually received our FEMA payment in June for COVID. That amount was $482,902. It's interesting to me because we still are waiting for payment on the flood from 2018. And this payment, we filed the claim in 2020. We filed for $660,000 roughly. At that time, they said all these things are qualified expenses. By the time they eventually adjudicated it and paid us, they disqualified some of those, but still, I'm shocked. We got reimbursement for FEMA, so it only took 3 years. That concludes my comments on the financials. Any questions related to that? Okay. Moving on to the insurance report. You can see June, once again, was a heavier claim month. Not only are the medical claims higher, but the pharmacy piece of it is higher. However, that drove higher rebate. We get a quarterly rebate. On a year-to-date basis, Our total claim expense is about $300,000 higher than previous year. At the same time, we're running about 8% above plan. I think I've mentioned to you that we start tracking claims for individuals that are on our plan when they hit the $50,000 threshold. Through 6 months, we've got 20 people that we're tracking. They haven't hit the stop loss threshold yet. That is higher than last year, but very similar to the 2 prior years. So we continue to keep an eye on insurance experience. That concludes my comments with insurance.
Is there any discussion or questions from the board?
What is our spec for stop loss?
275,
275, and how many people over 50 do we have?
20.
20.
So in a normal year, we'll have 2 or 3 people that hit the stop loss cap.
And having 20 is really,
Well, it was 22 2 years ago, so yeah. Last year was a decent year in this regard, so
and that runs a calendar year, Kevin, is that right?
it does.
Is there any other discussion?
Do you have any idea or anticipating any increases at all to premiums and stuff yet at this point, or is that still too early to?
Too early.
Too early?
The projection, so insurance committee doesn't meet through the summer. When we met in May, that early projection was showing an increase unless we take some action to mitigate that. Do we look at a narrow network? Anthem has a thing called Health Sync that the committee will consider when we come back. As school comes back in session, we'll meet again in September, October, look at pinning down what that renewal is going to look like and if we're going to change the plan makeup, because the intent would try to be to keep premiums for employees flat. As that chart that I shared with you a month or 2 ago showed, over the last 7 years, we've either kept it unchanged or we've pushed the premium down. We've made significant headway in reducing the cost to employees over the last 7 years. So
How does that compare to other districts?
I don't know the answer to that in terms of where our premiums are versus others.
In terms of holding the line for such a long period of time?
Much improved. Most districts have seen significant increases because it ebbs and flows. There'll be a lot of years where they're not bad, and then they'll have a bad experience year and they'll see a big spike. We've been able to mitigate that over the last several years, so that will be our intent again this fall.
Is there any other discussion from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the audience? No?
Library.
That was from the board.
Maybe to the board
From
section.
the board.
Yeah. I almost caught you down.
I don't have anything other than to remind the board that your next regular meeting is August the 8th at 7 p.m. right here.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything from the board?
Okay, so we have the approval of the library appointment, and I'm going to make a motion to recommend that we go ahead and approve Jerry Starr to continue on the as library appointment for Elkhart Community Schools, and then ask for a recommendation of the superintendent to receive the applications of the other community members that put in to apply for the second board appointment position. That is my motion.
So moved. Second, I should say.
Is there any discussion from the board? Is there any questions or comments from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there anything else from the board?
Yes. Our new superintendent has encouraged us to celebrate success, and he's been really busy this week because he got County Road 3 paved out here. So it'll be a real joy to come to work these days. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there anything else from the board?
I have one thing. I just want to say thank you to all of the volleyball members and our Coach Ross for putting on a wonderful volleyball camp for our young ones. And also Coach Cody did a phenomenal job with the young girls. Also, they were worn out and excited to be Lions. So they did a great job. So thank you for what you did last week for camp.
Is there anything else from the board?
I would just like to say, to Mr. Mao and Mr. Surge and Mrs. Kripe and Dr. Staley, welcome. Glad to have some of you back. I appreciate greatly your answer to our call for help and coming out of retirement. I think that we have been able to assemble an A team to help us and guide us through these next several months and year, to help put us in a position to be a much more attractive position to hire the best leader and to lead this district into the future. I am grateful for your families because I know it's a sacrifice for them as well. And I appreciate the support that they're giving you and the passion that you all show for this community. And I look forward to learning from you all and working with you all over the next several months to a year. And I know with your guidance and help and community support and everybody working together and the board working together that we will be a much stronger district and we will find the best leader to lead this district into the future. So I just wanted to say thank you for answering the call to help us.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Is there anything else from the board? Meeting